All right, what's going on, y'all? So today we're gonna be talking about running versus lifting for fat loss. This is a question I get quite often. I've gotten it all the way back in my ultramarathon days to when I was a hybrid athlete to now when I'm just focusing on bodybuilding. This is one of the most popular questions I get. Which training method is gonna allow me to burn weight, burn fat in the quickest, most efficient time possible? And this is a popular question because if you go back even decades in the fitness industry, when you look through the magazines or see what was promoted on television, when people went through the holiday season, gained all those extra pounds, and then they wanted to lose it, where did people first go to lose that weight? People jumped on those cardio machines. So for good reason, this is a very, very popular question in the fitness industry. Now, the reason it's been perpetuated that if you've gained weight and you want to lose that weight, to go hop on the treadmill or go outside for a run, all of that is because when you compare a lifting session, say a 45-minute lifting session to a 45-minute run, time to time, that cardio session is almost always going to burn more calories than the lifting session. It's just more efficient in that actual time frame itself at burning those calories. And this brings me to the first point. At the end of the day, regardless of training method selected, whether you want to go with lifting or you want to go with running or cardio, calories in versus calories out is always going to be king. And that's going to determine whether you're going to put on weight or you're going to actually lose the weight. So regardless, if you do decide to, just focus on fat loss in the gym or just focus on fat loss out on the road running, at the end of the day, calories in versus calories out and getting control over your calorie expenditure is always going to be paramount. So first I want to talk about my actual personal experience being an ultra runner and just focusing on endurance, to then being a hybrid athlete and doing endurance plus strength training, to now essentially just focusing on lifting since I'm getting ready for a bodybuilding show. I want to tell you about my personal experience and what actually allowed me to burn the fat and burn weight, and then I'll let you know what actually works out best for most people. So going all the way back, I've always been focused on running plus at least a little bit of strength training. From my time in the Army, we had the majority of our PT was built around runs, but we still did push-ups, pull-ups, more of CrossFit style workouts. To them being in the fire department, pretty similar. We had sandbag workouts for the strength component or gear workouts, but we still went out and did the runs. To then after that, I pretty much strictly just went into focusing on endurance. Now, during this time, even though I wanted that six-pack, I never really had at least very clear defined abs. And this was my fault for not actually, getting the calorie expenditure under control. So I was taking in more calories than I was actually burning even with all that exercise. But when I really, really got into ultra marathon training and, I was prepping for 50 milers and all of that, I actually did get my calorie expenditure under control. I was counting calories, I was counting my macros, I was making sure I was in a deficit because I wanted to essentially kill off that extra bit of stubborn fat and reveal a six-pack, if not eight-pack abs. It seemed like no matter what I did during this time, whether it was cutting out alcohol, whether it was being in a pretty severe deficit, whether it was raising the miles during the ultramarathon training, I just could not lose that kind of last bit of stubborn fat. And I lost a lot of weight during this time, and this will bring me to another point in a little bit. I got all the way down to 158 pounds, which for me, that's pretty light. But during this time, I just couldn't burn that extra little bit of fat. And I didn't really care for the way my physique looked. Now, during this time, I was doing ultramarathon training. That wasn't my kind of biggest focus. Yes, I wanted the physique along with the performance, but the main thing was finishing the ultramarathons. Then I got into hybrid training. When I got into hybrid training, the physique absolutely improved, and I started having a six-pack. And this is when I started putting on a little bit more weight, a little bit of weight back from doing the ultramarathon training, while still having pretty good control over my calories. And then I got into bodybuilding training. And if you guys have been following me for a while, you've seen my results with the bodybuilding training, but I was able to put on muscle and absolutely kill off every bit of that last bit of stubborn fat and reveal actual eight-pack abs. So I'm gonna explain exactly why this happened. So like I said before, most people perceive that because the cardio session or the running session burns quite a bit more calories than a lifting session, you go into the gym and lifting weights, that's what's gonna be best for fat loss. There is a difference between fat loss and weight loss. With weight loss, with the body composition, it doesn't matter whether that's coming from muscle, that's coming from fat, that's coming from water. Fat loss is very specific in that it's just fat. So that's one thing that you have to take into account. When I was doing ultramarathon training and I was losing all of this weight, but couldn't lose that last bit of fat, a big part of this was because I was actually losing weight and not just losing fat in the process. I was burning through muscle and all of that. And that's a big point with point number one, that running, unfortunately, is pretty catabolic. And I've talked about this in hybrid athlete training videos and all of that. And this is not an argument whether or not you should or should not run or should not lift. There's more reasons that go into it than just trying to burn fat. But when it comes to fat, unfortunately, the thing is that running is catabolic, which means it's actually going to burn through muscle. Not saying you can't keep muscle if you're a runner, all of that, but it's not efficient at allowing you to keep that hard-earned muscle that you built up, which does increase your metabolism. So point number one is that running is unfortunately catabolic and actually can strip through muscle. And that brings me to point number two, that the more muscle you actually have on your frame, the higher your metabolism is. And I know that a lot of you out there, if you've been, trying to lose weight for a while, or you've been in the fitness industry for a while, you already know that the more muscle you have on your frame, the higher your metabolism should be. And that's all nice to hear that and everything, but until it's actually put into practice or until you actually realize that for yourself, it's hard to actually kind of wrap your head around it. I saw this firsthand. So with my ultramarathon training, there's weeks where I was running 50, 60, even 70 miles per week, compared to just lifting, an hour to 2 hours per day. And I looked much better with essentially no running at all and just lifting. And the reason that is that the more muscle on your frame, the higher your metabolism is. In order for me to keep my physique right now, keep the actual weight steady right now, not lose weight, not gain weight, I have to take in a lot more calories than I did when I was this weight with less muscle on my frame. So when I was doing ultra marathons and I was pretty light, I couldn't eat very much without putting on negative weight, without putting on fat. Whereas now I have to eat thousands of calories more to put on that same amount of fat. So point number one is that running is catabolic and can actually remove some of the hard-earned muscle, which goes into point number two, which muscle actually increases your metabolism. Point number three, and this goes back to my ultramarathon days, is that the more miles I actually ran, the harder it was to lose that fat. It seemed like the more miles I actually added to the schedule, the harder it was to burn that bottom layer of extra stubborn fat on my frame. And there's actually a scientific reason behind this. Long steady state cardio, your body is actually very, very adaptive with it. And you can think about this logically as just, a human being or an animal, if they've got, a certain amount of activity that they've got to do every day, and they do that every day, especially endurance training, long training where you're burning a lot of calories, your body's going to adapt to be able to take in that amount of energy burn, essentially. So, if you're running 50 miles a week or you're getting on the treadmill for an hour every day just doing long, steady state cardio, while you are still burning those calories, your body is now more efficient at holding on to that fat as a reserve for you to use during that time. And this is something that I saw personally. It was like the more miles I ran, the harder it was for me to actually burn fat. And it comes down to your body is very, very adaptive. It's metabolically adaptive to long, steady state cardio. This is why a lot of times you'll hear fitness experts and people in the industry will try to promote for fat loss, high intensity interval training, HIIT training, those fast 20 to 25 minute cardio sessions, more like sprints, doing stuff like that, rather than, just going out for a long steady state run or getting on the treadmill for that amount of time, all of that. It's because of metabolic adaptation that comes from long steady state cardio. Now, with that being said, the adaptation is not a huge factor, but it is a factor with it if you are focused on your body composition and aesthetics. Point number four actually goes back to point number two about the more muscle you have on your frame, the higher your metabolism will be. Well, since running is catabolic and cardio itself can be catabolic, the more cardio you actually do, the harder it'll be for you to actually perform in a weight session. So this goes back to all you hybrid athletes that are trying to do both. if you're prioritizing your running, say in the morning, and then in the afternoon you have a lifting session, that's actually a great way to split it because you're giving yourself at least 6 hours between training sessions. But with that being said, your second session of the day is going to be a little bit lackluster than whatever your first session was. So whatever you're putting at the beginning of the day, whatever you're prioritizing as your kind of prioritized training method, that's what's going to take up the most amount of energy. And I know a lot of you hybrid athletes have already experienced this. If you go out for a run in the morning, in the afternoon it's harder to get a pump. Your strength numbers typically aren't as good, all of that. And so with that, your ability to put on muscle is actually reduced because of the running. All right, so the next point we have is that even though weight training burns less calories per session than say running does, your actual afterburn is a little bit greater, meaning that the amount of calories you burn after the session from your metabolism being increased is higher than if you were to go out for a steady state run. Now, if you're to do a HIIT session, anything like that, you are going to have a little bit of an afterburn effect as well, but you can't just compare calories from lifting to calories for running session to session because it doesn't equal out at the end of the day. Yes, you might be burning more calories while you're running, but you might burn more calories total from the session itself of lifting because of the afterburn effect and all of that. The afterburn effect is not that many calories, but it still does play into all of this, especially when you look at how your metabolism raises with lifting and all of that. So if you're to look at the numbers, you're to look into the science, you're to ask people like myself who have experimented with both running and lifting, trying to burn fat, you're gonna see that almost every time lifting wins as being the most efficient for fat loss. For weight loss, I personally think that both are very efficient. If you're trying to actually just lose weight and you don't care if it comes from muscle, fat, water, whatever, and you're just trying to lose weight, running is extremely efficient at that. If you're trying to be very specific and just target fat and not burn through very much muscle at all, then obviously lifting is where you want to go. Now, this is not me, dogging on running. This is not a video of, you shouldn't run. I absolutely love my ultra marathon days. I love my hybrid athlete training days, and I love my bodybuilding days. And I've gotten many things out of all of them. With that being said, running and cardio itself should be used as a tool. It should be used as a tool to increase your caloric expenditure throughout the day. But in my personal opinion, if your main goal is fat loss, it shouldn't be avoided, but it should just be used as a supplementary tool. And preferably you have a good strength training plan set up that you're using as your main training method to burn that fat and have the aesthetics that you want. Another reason that I don't want you to quit cardio or quit running is the cardiovascular benefits. If you guys have been following me, even through all of my bodybuilding days, I've made sure to still have daily, if not multiple times a week, cardio sessions in there for just overall cardiovascular health. Plus, it'll make you a more efficient lifter as well, which in turn will help you burn more fat at the end of the day. So should you use running to burn fat? Absolutely, but it should be a supplementary tool. It should be something that you do out of enjoyment, and it should be something that you do out of health. But if you are running to burn fat, and that is the main reason why you're running, there's absolutely other training methods out there that are better, specifically lifting and specifically with bodybuilding training. But like I said, this is a question that I get asked quite often: which is more efficient at burning fat? Which is the best at burning fat, running or lifting? By far, at the end of the day, if you're trying to lose fat and not just lose weight, choose lifting over running, but make sure to have cardio in there for cardiovascular health and to use as a supplementary tool to increase your calorie expenditure. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please do me a huge favor. Smash that like button, hit subscribe if you haven't already. Leave any comments or questions down below. Love going ahead and connecting with all of you. Be happy, be positive, be powerful. Have a great rest of your day.